Chapter 9, The Message. On the way to Mary Lou's, Phoebe said, Mary Lou's family is not nearly as civilized as ours. In what way? I asked. Oh, you'll see, Phoebe said. Mary Lou Finney and Ben Finney were both in our class at school. At first, I thought they were sister and brother, but Phoebe told me they were cousins and that Ben was living with Mary Lou's family temporarily. Apparently, there was always at least one stray relative living at the Finneys temporarily. It was complete pandemonium at the Finneys. Mary Lou had an older sister and three brothers. In addition, there were her parents and Ben. There were footballs and basketballs lying all over the place, and boys sliding down the banister, leaping over tables and talking with their mouths full and interrupting everyone with endless questions. Phoebe took one look around and whispered to me, Mary Lou's parents do not seem to have much control over things. Phoebe could sound a bit prissy sometimes. Mr. Finney was lying in the bathtub with all his clothes on, reading a book. From Mary Lou's bedroom window, I saw Mrs. Finney lying on top of the garage with a pillow under her head. What's she doing? I asked. Mary Lou peered out the window. King of Kings, she's taking a nap. When Mr. Finney got out of the bathtub, he went out in the backyard and tossed a football around with Dennis and Dougie, two of Mary Lou's brothers. Mr. Finney shouted, Over here and that away, and way to go. The previous weekend, we had a school sports day. Parents were watching their children show off, and there were even some events for the parents too, such as the three-legged race and the pass the grapefruit. My father could not come, but Mary Lou's parents were there, and so were Phoebe's. Phoebe had said, the games are a little childish sometimes, which is why my parents don't usually participate. Her parents stood on the sidelines while Mr. and Mrs. Finney ran around shouting, Over here and way to go, in the three-legged race. The Finneys kept falling over. Phoebe said, I wonder if Mary Lou is embarrassed because of the way her parents are acting. I didn't think it was embarrassing. I thought it was nice, but I didn't say so to Phoebe. I think that deep down Phoebe thought it was nice too, and she wished her own parents would act more like the Finneys. She couldn't admit this, though, and in a way, I liked this about Phoebe, that she tried to defend her family. On the day that Phoebe and I met the potential lunatic and then went over to Mary Lou's, a couple other peculiar things happened. We were sitting on the floor of Mary Lou's room, and Phoebe was telling Mary Lou about the mysterious potential lunatic. Mary Lou's brothers, Dennis, Doug, and Tommy, kept dashing in and out of the room, leaping on the bed and squirting us with squirt guns. Mary Lou's cousin Ben was lying on her bed, staring at me with his black eyes. They looked like two sparkly black discs set into big round sockets. His dark eyelashes were long and feathery, casting shadows on his cheeks. I like your hair, he said to me. Can you sit on it? Yes, if I want. Ben picked up a piece of paper from Mary Lou's desk, lay back down on the bed, and drew a picture of a lizard-like creature with long black hair that, as it ran down the lizard's back and under its bottom, became a chair with legs. Underneath this, Ben had written, Salamander sitting on her hair. Very amusing, Phoebe said. She left the room and Mary Lou followed her. I turned around to hand the drawing back to Ben. Just as he leaned forward and mashed his lips into my collarbone. His lips rested there a moment. My nose was pressed into his hair, which smelled like grapefruit. Then he rolled off the bed, grabbed the drawing, and dashed out of the room. Did he actually kiss my collarbone? And if he did, why did he do that? Was this kiss supposed to land somewhere else, like on my mouth, for example? That was a chilling thought. Had I imagined it? Maybe he merely brushed against me as he was rolling off the bed. On the way home from Mary Lou's that day, Phoebe said, Wasn't it, well, loud there? I didn't mind, I said. I was thinking of something my father once said to my mother. We'll fill the house up with children. We'll fill it right up to the brim. But they hadn't filled it up. It was just me and them. And then it was just me and my father. When we got back to Phoebe's house, her mother was lying on the couch, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. Is something wrong? Phoebe asked. Oh no, Mrs. Winterbottom said. Nothing's wrong. Then Phoebe told her mother about the potential lunatic who had come to the house earlier. This news upset Mrs. Winterbottom. She wanted to know exactly what he had said and what Phoebe said and what he looked like and how he acted and how Phoebe acted, on and on. At last, Mrs. Winterbottom said, I think we had better not mention this to your father. She reached forward as if to hug Phoebe, but Phoebe pulled away. Later, Phoebe said, That's odd. Usually my mother tells my father absolutely everything. Maybe she's just trying to save you from getting into trouble for talking with a stranger. I still don't like keeping it secret from him, Phoebe said. We walked out onto her porch, and there, lying on the top step, was a white envelope. There was no name or anything on the outside. I thought it was one of those advertisements for painting your house or cleaning your carpets. Phoebe opened it. Gosh, she said. Inside was a small piece of blue paper, and on it was printed this message. Don't judge a man until you've walked 2 moons in his moccasins. What an odd thing, Phoebe said. When Phoebe showed the message to her mother, Mrs. Winterbottom clutched at her collar. Who could it be for? Mrs. Winterbottom asked. Mr. Winterbottom came in the back door carrying his golf clubs. Look, George, said Mrs. Winterbottom said. Who could this be for? I couldn't say, really, Mr. Winterbottom said. But, George, why would someone send us that message? I couldn't say, Norma. Maybe it isn't for us. Not for us, Mrs. Winterbottom said. But it was on our steps. Really, Norma, it could be for anyone. Maybe it's for Prudence or Phoebe. Phoebe? Mrs. Winterbottom asked. Is it for you? For me? Phoebe said. I don't think so. Well, who is it for? Mrs. Winterbottom said. She was awfully worried. I believe she thought it came from the potential lunatic.